Live on DAZN Worldwide, April 26th, Eubank Jr. versus Ben. 30 years of rivalry and hatred.
I do hate him.
All comes down to this. The next generation, a new destroyer. For family, history, legacy. Eubank Jr. versus Ben, April 26th. Buy now at DAZN.com/boxing.
Oscar Bevis for the Stomping Ground, powered by Wow Hydrate and available on DAZN. It's been a while, Frankie boy. What's happening?
What's happening? What's happening?
You're loving it, aren't you? Australia, Atlantic City,
Sheffield,
press conferences.
all over the world, mate.
I've got to say, as fans of Frank Smith and friends of Frank Smith on this channel, do quite like it when you play this press conference role.
Do you?
I'm a fan, yeah.
Problem is, I just get compared to Eddie, and I'm nowhere near as good as him, you know. But
Let's not make it a Glaze Eddie type interview.
yeah, I mean, yeah, look, it's different. It's different. I try and approach it from a different angle. No one really wants to hear from me anyway. I'm just up here so I've got a microphone on so I can do the head-to-head and capture any moments. That's my key role, to be honest.
Mate, you'd be surprised. And I've got to say, instead of the press conference table,
What do
I
you
like
like?
just the sofa sit-down.
So do I. See, we have this conversation in the office, but because Eddie likes hearing his voice, he doesn't like hearing Jamie's voice too much, whereas I quite like this concept.
See, I'm not a
You're a
Jamie
fan?
Ward hater. I'm a fan of Jamie Ward as well, so I'm
Good to know.
fine with this setup.
Good to know.
How was Atlantic City?
Cold, but a tremendous event. You know, it's been years since Atlantic City Ball Court has had big-time boxing. And Jarrell Ennis delivered. Great fight, him and Stanionis, you know, the two best in the division. Unification, Ring Magazine Championship on the line. Jarrell Ennis showed why people are excited about him. You know, and it was great to see. It was a great night, and he's got so much more to come now. The aim has got to be unifications or moving up in weight and winning world titles there.
Yeah, in terms of boots, his first two fights with Matchroom, I know obviously Avanesian was one of the opponents, but I think it would be fair to say there wasn't as much appetite as there was for the Stanionis fight. But when Eddie put it on Instagram, it made sense. It was one mandatory, one voluntary, one mandatory, and one unification. So the actual three-fight short-term plan looks like it's kind of worked perfectly for what's to come.
Yeah, look, 100%. And, you know, when you look at it, that second fight, especially against Karen, it's very hard to be motivated in a fight where you've gone and run every round against the geezer a year before or whatever. You know, for us, the momentum's been key. 3 fights, 10 months. As Eddie says, 35,000 tickets sold. No one's doing that in the US. You know, outside of the likes of, you know, Canelo, Tank, maybe Shakur, I think Boots is the biggest ticket seller. You know, he's doing huge numbers and he's in a great position. He's going to set himself up to be a face of US boxing, if not already. So we're excited about where we're at with him and the continued development and the path we're on.
What's the preferred option for him? Undisputed at 147, or just the biggest fight possible, whether it requires belts or not?
I like the biggest fights possible.
Yeah, of course.
At the same time, you know, sometimes chasing that undisputed can be difficult. You know, sometimes trying to keep the belts, trying to
keep your weight.
Exactly, and but it will be whatever he's driven to do. You know, if a big fight comes up at 154 that he wants to take, happy days. If the unifications come up at 147, happy days. You know, so that's our job to go away now and make those big fights. But I'm happy and delighted with what's been done so far.
Let's talk about Josh Padley, by the way. So this time last year, I think he said it himself, he said it was Leeds Banquet in Suite. Mate, pulling in big numbers on his behind the scenes on Matchroom YouTube. Win at Wembley, good performance in Riyadh. Mate, you've got to be loving the emergence of Josh Padley. It is one of the quality stories of the last 9 months.
100%, and I think so many fighters can learn from him as to what he's done by taking opportunities, taking chances and risking his risking his position, because he's gone in there, that Shakur Stevenson fight, he's come out with so many more plaudits and fans than he ever could doing anything else. You know, he's a character, and now he can fully focus on boxing as well. You know, he's been working in the background before this, but now he can fully focus on the sport he loves, and I'm looking forward to about the journey we're on with him.
Josh Warrington, a certain Mick Conlan in the room today. I know he's got a job to do, but a lot of Warrington Conlan talk. That is a proper tasty fight, isn't it?
Yeah, look, it's a great fight. Mick's also got the European title fight, I think in May on Channel 5. He's got to get through that. That's a massive fight. It's two guys who sell a lot of tickets, who have done great things for the sport. And if we can make that fight, that would be a great fight to make for sure.
And the main event, Dalton Smith. I feel like we said this the last time when we was in Nottingham, the kind of night before the night. But this is
the night before the night.
Fight. Yeah.
Yeah, but look, I think for us with Dalton, it was about giving him that momentum that he needed to set himself up in the right manner for that world title fight. He'd had a lot of 2024 out with injury, and the focus was to keep him active and keep him busy. You know, the start of the year in January, Wally Doozer, we know what kind of fight it was. You know, in reality, he wanted to win the European title, but he dealt with him in spectacular fashion. And that's what Dalton Smith does. Every fight he goes into, he delivers those performances and he trains like it's that world title shot. He never looks past anyone. It's our job to look past people and plan for him and do the best job for him. After this, the world title shot's next. But Matthew Germain, as he said up here, has got an opportunity to upset the whole thing. You know, and but knowing Dalton Smith, knowing the way he's trained, knowing the way he goes about it, there won't be any excuses. You're going to see another spectacular performance and then a huge world title shot by the end of this year.
Yeah, bring it on. A quick one, because we mentioned obviously Shakur Stevenson when we were talking about Josh Padley. There was a couple of things that he said on Twitter about the money he got for Padley, the money he would get for Zepeda. I know it's all kind of cleared up and he tweeted a couple of things yesterday. What was that situation like to deal with?
Well, look, I think it's dealt with. You know, as always in boxing, lots of things happen, lots of things are said, and then the reality is people have a discussion and it gets cleared up. And let's not dwell on the past. We're in a positive place, and that's good.
Just kind of reactionary at the time, sort of.
Yeah, but a lot of things in life are reactionary, aren't they? In all walks of life, and then you look back and you go, "Oh, could have done," you know. So it's good that it's settled. That's the truth. You know, that's where lots of things are said over time, but it's good that it's settled. That's the focus. Turkey Yellow Shake's making great fights for the sport of boxing, and yeah, it's good to see.
Do you know what is settled? Whittaker Cameron, 10 rounds confirmed.
I bet Liam Cameron's rubbing his hands together, isn't he? But the
what
thing
have
is,
you made of the last? How long is it? Well, when did this come out? The last 3 or so weeks.
That's a shit show, isn't it? Let's be honest. I mean, look, the reality is it's human error. Someone has made a mistake. It happens.
Can happen, yeah.
Yeah, that's life. It's then how you approach a human error and deal with it. And I think if you have a different relationship, you'd ring up and go, look, there's been a mess up. Can we discuss it? Problem is, this is played out very publicly as well, you know, and there's been lies told, or I guess untruths. I don't know if I can say lie. You know, I'm not going to get myself in any trouble, but
find the right synonym for the word.
Yeah, I think when you're coming out saying it's all done, it's all agreed, and then the person who is involved in it is going, what a load of rubbish, you dig yourself an even deeper hole. The reality is, and I said this a couple of times, in terms of, I feel sorry for Ben Whittaker, because they've embarrassed Ben Whittaker through no fault of his own. Ben Whittaker had a contract, I guess, for 10 rounds, right? That's what he's been training for, fair play. So you're Ben Whittaker, that's what you're training to do. And Liam Cameron had a contract for 12 rounds. I think the key thing I didn't like is the thing of, look, Ben's the A side in this fight. Doesn't matter, it's irrelevant. You've signed a contract for 12 rounds. It's on you. And if you don't fulfil that, you get sued for breach of contract, and you know, you say, oh, we'll get another opponent. Well, it doesn't matter. You've signed a contract for something, you've got to deliver upon it or pay me. You know, and ultimately Liam's won in both ways. I'm sure he's got healthily well paid, and also at the same time mentally he's in a place, because I'm sure he believes he can beat him over 10 or 12 rounds, just like I'm sure Ben Whittaker will do. So yeah, been a complete mess, but yeah, what do you expect? I mean, it's not the first time, it won't be the last. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more blunders along the way. I love competition like this. It's great.
Let's say this was one of your light heavies that Ben Whittaker was fighting.
Oh, mate.
You were talking about relationships. Yeah. Do you accept the phone call and go, okay, there's been a mistake?
I would have dragged it out till Saturday myself. Oh, look, it's all...
Because you mentioned that you could pick up the phone and you could kind of play ball, but then again, you're just sitting there and saying, and we all know that Liam Cameron's eating off of this mistake. So...
Yeah, but the game's the game, isn't it? And you put yourself in that position, you have to pay for it. You want to roll with the big boys, you got to, pay up.
Have you ever seen that happen in anything?
No, it's a complete mess. But let's be honest, it's the most simple thing ever. The first page of a contract basically sets out where is it, when is it, how much money am I getting, who am I fighting, how many rounds is it? Like the basic term. I mean, look, don't get me wrong, there's 20 other pages, but that's really the key terms. It's a complete mess. But again, it's human error can happen in all walks of life. I make errors, you make errors, we all make errors, right? It's how you approach those errors. And if you do it in a manner that is the right way and go about it in the right way, then that's the right way to do it. I saw Frank Warren's interview where they were saying they were trying to go behind, get Liam to sign it direct, like all these things. If you handle things in the right manner and deal with people in the right way, there's probably a bit more empathy in life that way. Whereas if everyone thinks you're a bit of a knob, and the way you approach things is like you're a bit of a knob, no one's going to go out of their way to help you. You know, and I'm sure there's people who think that there's people you could do it to who would go the same route and drag you until the last minute to get as much money as possible. There's other people who go, do you know what? He's helped me out, or he's done the right thing here and there, and this is an honest mistake. You know, and I'll work with them. Unfortunately, here you're talking about two promotional rivals or companies. Maybe not, I wouldn't call it rivalries, to be honest, but companies who don't see eye to eye, and the way things have been approached over a period of time doesn't make you want to help someone out. It's the reality of it. So, fair play, Liam Cameron. Looking forward to a great fight. Good luck to them both. Yeah.
Did you expect Ben to, and I know he hasn't said much, which I guess might be the right move in this situation.
It's not Ben's fault. Like,
but did you expect Ben to come out and go, this is what Eddie said, 10 or 12, I'm winning, I don't give a fuck?
No, I mean, I don't always have to agree with what Eddie says. I expect Ben to come. No, but like, no, I expect Ben to come out, right, and go, I've got a contract for 10 rounds, right? I'm fighting 10 rounds. That's what I've agreed to. I get what Eddie's saying about mentally, right? Yeah. But I'd expect him to come out and go, it's a complete shit show, and I'm embarrassed, but that's what I've signed up to. You know, it may be interesting if anyone actually asks him the question, because he's been put in a terrible position. And I like Ben Whittaker, like, I really get on with him, but I think time and time again he's been sort of mismanaged, maybe is the or handled in the wrong manner for someone of his stature, because he is a big star and he's got all the potential, but from a mental standpoint, you know, Liam's won that war, really. You know, who
do you want to win? Have you got a preference?
Do you know what? I actually like them both. I really get on with Liam Cameron, right? I only met him recently, like in the last year or so, and obviously with Dalton and all those guys like in the camp. But I get on with Ben Whittaker. I always had a good relationship with him. I'm not sitting there. I don't train or manage or promote either of them. I like watching good fights, and may the best man win on the night. The first fight was entertaining. This fight will be the same. You know, I think on both sides, Ben has taken it probably more like you look at the shape he's in, training with Andy Lee. Andy Lee's not a yes man. He's going to be the person who's putting it on him, and if Ben isn't putting the work in, he wouldn't be training him. At the same time, Liam Cameron looks in so much better shape than he did the first time. So they both know what this fight means, and it's a great fight. So may the best man win.
Can I ask you about Jarrell Miller's little, I don't even want to call it a kick. It was a kick off at Portman Road. I know the board have withheld part of his purse.
A bit of a weak slap.
It was more like a stroke, wasn't it? It weren't really a slap.
He was quite far away.
It was what I was going to say. If this is a matchroom fight, right, and I've asked you after the press conference what you think, would you be open and just say, do you know what? I like that. Because you're trying to sell out a stadium. It works. Because Frank on the day, Frank was like, it's not good for the sport, etc. But I'm not being funny. The clicks that day were because Jarrell had his little boot off on the stage.
It is what it is. It's been around. It's been like that for hundreds of years. It'll continue to be like that for hundreds of years. A bit of fire is always interesting. We saw it when Chris and Connor had that spat, or Chris with the egg, you know, like, that's what does views. I'm not saying I necessarily would do it or agree, but that's for everyone, each and their own, to decide. And if there's repercussions to pay for it, there's repercussions to pay. That's the reality of it. But it's the game we're in. At the end of the day, we're in a brutal game where people want to slap people, push people. Not all the time, but it happens. And they're big boys, and, you know, it's going to continue to happen, I'm sure.
Do you like that fight?
Yeah, I think it, yeah. I like Fabio, but yeah, I think it's an interesting fight. Look, we want fights where there's narrative, where there's a storyline, and an entertaining fight, and that's what that is.
Final one, Chris Eubank Senior yesterday got quite emotional in the couple of interviews that he done on the charity day where he was walking with Michael Watson. How are we to take that? Because we're not far away from the biggest British fight of the year. And you've got one of the most influential, famous British fighters of all time saying that they're not happy, and he's obviously emotionally involved in the fight. How are we to take that? It's quite a difficult situation when we're 10 days out from the first bell.
Look, I think no one can be in his position that he's in, so everyone who has an opinion, no one knows his position, if that makes sense. You know, like, only he can understand why he's saying the things he's saying. Look, I think it's different from the first fight. The first fight was made at 157, a weight that Chris had never made. This is at 160, a very natural weight for Chris, a weight that many of his previous fights have been at. The majority of his career has been at 160. You know, look, Connor's making a big step up, jumping up 2 weight divisions to fight Chris at 160. You know, so there's benefits and negatives for both fighters. I think Chris is, you know, Conor's the younger, fresher fighter, but he's stepping up 2 weight divisions. And look, if the fight wasn't safe and people involved in the sport, i.e. the British Boxing Board of Control, didn't deem it to be safe, it wouldn't be happening. You know, that's the reality of it. Chris isn't a big 160 fighter. He never has been. I don't think he's really been someone who blows up a huge amount of weight after a weigh-in. Again, I don't work with him, so you'd have to speak to him. But it's very different from that first fight. I think that first fight was 157 and 165, you know, and this one's 160 and 170. Chris's natural weight is 160. Yes, if he would have had to have made 157, could it have been a lot harder? Probably. You know, I don't know. I don't think he's ever done it before. But yeah, I don't really go too much into the detail. But like I say, from senior's perspective, no one can really question what he says because, you know, no one's in his position.
Is it sad that we won't have him there on the night? Because I feel like when you talk about the weeks-long kind of press tour as such that we've done, Nigel played such a big part.
Look, both of these...
And there's a hole missing on Chris's
both
side.
Junior and Conor are in this position because of their fathers, right? In the reality of where this has all come from. Because of their fathers and what they did, right? But they've now built their own narrative. But it all started, and their career started in terms of because of what their fathers had done. Would it be lovely for both fathers to be there? Yes. If it's not, it's a huge fight, you know, and... It's probably the biggest fight in British boxing outside of Joshua Fury. And when next week comes around, it will feel like it felt all those years back when it was supposed to happen, where it felt like a moment was taking over the country. You know, that's one of those fights that we haven't seen in a long time that everyone's talking about. Everywhere you go, people are talking about this fight. And what makes it even better is that I believe it's a very close 50-50 fight because of the strength, the positives and negatives on both sides. You know, they've both got things they're giving up to go into this fight. And it's going to be a barn burner for as long as it lasts. And I'm excited for it.
How close will they be able to get on fight week? Are we going to let them
proper
head-to-heads?
We're doing an egg challenge where from a distance, whoever can land the most eggs on the other. Decides who walks first.
Because it's one of them where I know obviously there's safety precautions, but we don't want one of them head-to-heads where they're like 3 metres away. We want to see them nose-to-nose. You know?
Yeah, I'm sure you'll see some nose-to-nose.
Yeah. Final one. Why is the Trilogy better for Dimitri Bivol than...
Because it's 2 of the best fights we've seen in recent times between Dimitri Bivol and Artur Beterbiev. Dimitri Bivol is the undisputed champion of the world, has never shied away from any fight, has gone in there with everyone people have asked of him, went and beat Canelo Alvarez in Las Vegas, went and returned after a close fight against Artur Beterbiev the first time around. I believe he can decide what he wants to do. I believe
it's a question really, because Artur Beterbiev is... As tough of a fight as it can get.
Yeah, look, the way the whole thing's been handled has been a mess by the WBC, in my opinion. And I believe, you know, look, I think you have to be impartial in their position. And they aren't. And they haven't been. All we care about is Dimitri Bivol's career, making the best and biggest fights for him. Not going to be led by, you know, look, if someone else had just won the Undisputed Championship and then out of nowhere after 3 years of being in that position, it's like, right, you know, because when he was at 168, he had 2-3 years of being in that position at 168 with the WBC, nothing happened. But then suddenly Dimitri Bivol becomes undisputed, mandatory, you know, with no regard for any of the other mandatories as well. So that's boxing, though, we have to get used to it. But at the end of the day, it's about the biggest fights in the sport. Fighters love belts. For me, I don't care as much about belts. We want to see the best fights in the sport. No one ever remembers anyone saying, "Oh, was that belt on the line?" if it's a great fight.
This is a great fight with belts.
Look at next Saturday. Next Saturday, no one cares about belts. There's no belts on the line. It's not made a single difference to the fight. It's about narrative. It's about the fights. It's about fighters delivering in the ring. Who cares about belts? Let's, you know, as much as fighters will say they want to win belts, and I respect that and will deliver that for them. At the end of the day, you got to do the right thing for a fighter, belt or no belt. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Smith.
Cheers, mate.
Live on DAZN Worldwide, April 26th, Eubank Jr. versus Ben. 30 years of rivalry and hatred.
I do hate him.
All comes down to this. The next generation, a new destroyer. For family, history, legacy. Eubank Jr. versus Ben, April 26th. Buy now at DAZN.com/boxing.